There's a moment when you realize your family isn't who you thought they were. For me, it wasn't a single lightning strike of clarity, but a slow, painful unraveling, like watching a sweater you've worn your whole life come apart thread by thread, until you're left holding nothing but loose strands of what once felt like home. Before we jump in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. I never thought I'd be sitting here, alone in my downtown condo, staring at a family photo where everyone's smiling faces now feel like strangers. But when my brother chose his pregnant mistress over his wife and children, over all of us, the carefully constructed facade of the Mitchell family crumbled faster than one of his cheaply made development projects. The question I keep asking myself isn't whether we made the right choice in cutting ties, it's whether there was ever any other choice at all. Growing up in Portland's Laurelhurst neighborhood, the Mitchell name meant something. Our craftsman. House with its perfectly manicured lawn and my father's black Mercedes in the driveway were symbols of a success story that Richard Mitchell told at every dinner party. From a construction worker to the owner of Mitchell Properties, he'd say, clapping my brother Nathan on the shoulder. And soon, this empire will be in even more capable hands. I was always in the background of that particular family portrait. Not invisible, just adjacent. The daughter who excelled in school, who built a marketing career from scratch, who bought her own condo at 30 without a penny of family money. But in the Mitchell household, building something of your own wasn't as impressive as inheriting something built by someone else. "Emma's our independent one," my mother Claire would say, her voice holding a strange mix of pride and apology, as if my self-sufficiency was both commendable and slightly disappointing. I learned early that being self-reliant was my assigned role in the family, while Nathan was designated as the heir, the future, the golden child whose every stumble was cushioned by my parents' unconditional support. Still, we were family. Through the strained holiday dinners and the forced family photos at the annual Mitchell Properties Charity Gala, we maintained the appearance of unity. When Nathan married Megan in a lavish ceremony at the Portland Art Museum, I stood beside her as bridesmaid, genuinely hoping their marriage would be happier than our parents. When Thomas and Sophia were born, I embraced my role as the doting aunt who spoiled them with books instead of toys and took them hiking around Mount Hood, while their parents networked at country club events. For all our differences, I loved my brother. The Nathan who taught me to ride a bike when I was 6, who defended me against neighborhood bullies when I was 10, who snuck me into my first concert at 16, that Nathan was real. But somewhere, between college and taking over the family business, he changed. Or maybe he just became more of what our father had always groomed him to be. "Family is everything, Em," he'd tell me during our increasingly rare one-on-one dinners. But so is legacy. I should have recognized then how he'd separated those concepts, family and legacy, as if they were distinct, occasionally competing. Priorities. Maybe if I had, I would have been more prepared for what came next. The first tremor in our family's foundation came during last year's charity gala, the Mitchell Family Annual Community Investment Dinner, an event my father started. 20 years ago, that had become Portland's premier networking opportunity for the real estate and development world. I'd been handling the marketing and PR for the event since graduating college, transforming it from a stuffy dinner into a media-worthy showcase that attracted local celebrities and politicians alike. I was checking on the table arrangements when I saw her, a young woman with caramel-colored hair, wearing an emerald dress that hugged her slender figure, standing too close to my brother in a corner of the ballroom. There was something in the way he leaned down to whisper in her ear, in the casual possessiveness of his hand against the small of her back, that made my stomach tighten. "Who's that with Nathan?" I asked Becca, my best friend and colleague who'd been helping me coordinate the event. Becca followed my gaze and frowned. "Some new project manager at Mitchell Properties, I think. Olivia something." "Where's Megan?" I scanned the room for my sister-in-law. "Home with Sophia. Apparently she has the flu." I nodded, trying to ignore the unease creeping up my spine. Nathan had always been flirtatious, another trait our father had casually encouraged as good for business. But this felt different. The way they moved in sync, the secretive smiles, the unnecessary touches. I knew what I was seeing, but I didn't want to name it. Later that night, after most guests had left and the staff was cleaning up, I found Nathan in our father's office, pouring himself a generous scotch. "Successful night," I said, leaning against the doorframe. "We raised almost double what we did last year." He raised his glass in acknowledgement. "Couldn't have done it without your marketing magic, Em." I stepped into the room, closing the door behind me. "Who's Olivia?" His expression didn't change, but I noticed how his knuckles whitened around the glass. "New acquisition manager. Dad hired her about 3 months ago. She seems friendly." Nathan set his glass down, his eyes meeting mine with a hardness I'd grown accustomed to in recent years. "Don't start, Emma." "Don't start what?" "I'm just making conversation about your new employee who seems very comfortable around her boss." He sighed, running a hand through his hair, a gesture so reminiscent of our father that it momentarily caught me off guard. "She's good at her job. Unlike some people at Mitchell Properties, she actually understands what we're trying to build." The barb landed exactly where he intended. I'd turned down a position at the family company right out of college, choosing instead to work at Cascade Creative, where I'd since become partner. It was a decision Nathan had never fully forgiven, seeing it as rejection not just of the business, but of him, of our father, of the entire Mitchell legacy. "What you're trying to build," I corrected him. "And what about what you've already built? With Megan? With Thomas and Sophia?" A muscle twitched in his jaw. "Don't lecture me about my family." "Then don't make me have to." We stood there, siblings locked in a standoff that had been brewing for years. Finally, he picked up his scotch and drained it. "It's nothing," he said. "Just business. You wouldn't understand." I left the gala that night with a knot in my stomach that wouldn't unravel. For weeks afterward, I debated whether to say something to Megan, to my parents, even to Nathan himself in a more direct way. But each time I considered it, I told myself it wasn't my place, that I might have misinterpreted, that family matters should stay within the family. It was Becca who finally forced me to confront what I already knew. "I saw them together," she told me over coffee at Cardinal Cafe, our regular thinking spot 3 blocks from Cascade Creative's offices. "Nathan and that Olivia woman? They were at Riverside Park and it wasn't innocent, Emma." I stared into my latte, watching the foam dissipate. "You don't know that." "Emma." Her voice was gentle but firm. "They were kissing. In broad daylight in a public park. He's not even trying to hide it." Something cold and hard settled in my chest. Not surprise. I'd known, hadn't I? But the certainty that I could no longer pretend. That the careful balance I'd maintained between loyalty to my brother and my own moral compass was about to collapse. "What are you going to do?" Becca asked. I didn't have an answer then. But 3 days later, my mother's tearful phone call made the decision for me. "Emma, you need to come home. Now. It's your brother. There's a situation." I arrived at my parents' house to find the driveway filled with cars. My father's Mercedes, Nathan's Range Rover, Megan's Volvo, and an unfamiliar blue Prius. Inside, the tension was thick enough to choke on. My mother sat rigid on the edge of the sofa, her hands clasped so tightly her knuckles were white. My father paced by the fireplace, his face flushed with an anger I recognized from childhood confrontations. Nathan stood by the window, arms crossed, while Megan sat in an armchair, her face pale and tear-streaked. And there, perched uncomfortably on the ottoman, was Olivia. "What's going on?" I asked, though the scene before me told me everything. I needed to know. Your brother, my father said, his voice trembling with rage, has made an announcement. Nathan stepped forward, his chin raised in that defiant way he had whenever he expected disapproval, but had already decided he didn't. Care, Olivia's pregnant. It's mine. We're going to be together. The silence that followed his declaration was deafening. I looked at Megan, whose eyes were fixed on the carpet, her hands shaking slightly in her lap. What about your wife? I asked, unable to keep the disbelief from my voice. What about Thomas and Sophia? We've discussed it, Nathan said, though his avoidance of Megan's gaze told me the nature of that discussion. We'll divorce, obviously. I'll provide for the kids. Provide? Megan's voice cut through the room, quiet but razor sharp. Is that what fatherhood means to you? Writing checks? Nathan had the decency to look uncomfortable. Of course not. I'll still see them, still be part of their lives. While you start a new family? Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. I interrupted. While you play house with your pregnant mistress? Emma, my mother warned, but I was beyond caring about keeping the peace. No, I want to hear him explain this, I insisted. I want to hear how he justifies blowing up his family, hurting his children, humiliating his wife. Enough! My father's voice boomed through the living room. He turned to Nathan, his expression hard. This isn't how we raised you. This isn't what Mitchell men do. I almost laughed at the absurdity, as if the problem was not the affair, not the pregnancy, not the devastation caused to Megan and the children, but the potential damage to the Mitchell reputation. Nathan's jaw set in that stubborn line I knew so well. It's done, Dad. I love Olivia. We're having this baby. You can either accept it or not, but it won't change anything. My father turned to Olivia then, seeing her, really seeing her, for the first time. And you? You're comfortable tearing apart a family? Taking a father away from his children? Olivia flinched but held her ground. I didn't set out for this to happen. But I love Nathan, and this baby deserves a father who's present, who wants to be there. And what about the children who already exist? I asked. Don't they deserve that too? Emma, please. My mother's voice was strained. This isn't helping. But I couldn't stop. Years of watching Nathan get away with everything, of seeing him fail upward, of witnessing the double standards that had shaped both our lives, came boiling to the surface. This is exactly who you raised him to be, I told my father. The entitled son who gets whatever he wants, who never faces consequences, who thinks the rules don't apply to him. You created this. My father recoiled as if I'd slapped him. That's enough, Emma. No, it's not enough. I turned to my brother. What do you want from us, Nathan? Blessing? Permission? What exactly are we supposed to do with this information? Nathan looked at me, and for a moment, I saw a flicker of the brother I'd grown up with, uncertain, vulnerable, seeking approval. But it vanished as quickly as it appeared. I want you to accept my choice, he said firmly. I want you to welcome Olivia and our child into this family, the same way you would any new addition. Megan made a small, wounded sound, like the air had been punched from her lungs. I moved to her side, placing a hand on her shoulder. She was trembling. That's not how this works, I said quietly. You don't get to demand acceptance for your betrayal. My father stepped between us. We need time, he told Nathan. This is a lot to process. You've sprung this on all of us, and there are considerations. The business, the family name. The business? The family name? Megan's voice rose, incredulous. Your son just told you he's leaving me for another woman. That he's starting a new family while abandoning his existing one, and you're worried about Mitchell properties? My mother reached for her hand. Megan, sweetheart, that's not what Richard meant. Yes, it is, I said, the pieces finally clicking into place. That's exactly what he meant. I looked around the room, at the people who had shaped my life. My father, the patriarchy personified, my mother, the eternal peacekeeper, my brother, the entitled heir, and now Olivia, the catalyst who had finally exposed the cracks that had always existed in our family's foundation. And Megan, smart, kind Megan, who had married into this family believing the facade, who had given Nathan 2 beautiful children and a decade of her life, only to be discarded when something newer, shinier came along. In that moment, standing in the living room where I'd grown up, I made a choice. Not just for myself, but for what I believed family should actually mean. I'm with Megan, I said, my voice steady. Whatever she needs, whatever the kids need, that's where my loyalty lies. Nathan stared at me, genuinely shocked. You're my sister, and that meant something to me, I replied, until today. My father stepped forward, his business mediator persona taking over. Let's all calm down. No one needs to take sides. That's exactly what we need to do, I interrupted. Because this isn't a business negotiation, Dad. This is about right and wrong, and Nathan is wrong. Olivia stood up, her hand instinctively moving to her still flat stomach. I understand this is difficult, but the baby is innocent, I finished for her. Yes, the baby is innocent, just like Thomas and Sophia are innocent. But you and Nathan? You made choices that hurt people who didn't deserve it, and now you want everyone to pretend it's okay. My mother began to cry silently, tears tracking down her carefully made-up face. My father looked torn between anger and calculation. No. Doubt, already strategizing how to minimize the PR damage to Mitchell properties. Nathan just looked stubborn. The same expression he'd worn when he broke my favorite doll at age 7 and refused to apologize. I think I should go, Megan said quietly, standing up. Emma, would you mind driving me home? I don't. I don't think I should be behind the wheel right now. I nodded, grateful for the excuse to escape. As we headed for the door, my father called after us. This isn't over. We're family. We'll figure this out. I turned back one last time, taking in the tableau. My parents, Nathan, Olivia, all looking expectantly at me, waiting for me to fall in line, to prioritize family unity over everything else. Some things can't be figured out, I said. Some betrayals change everything. As I closed the door behind us, I heard my father's voice, sharp with warning. Emma, don't do something you'll regret. But walking away from that house with Megan sobbing quietly beside me, I didn't feel regret. I felt the strange, painful relief that comes with finally seeing the truth. The drive to Megan's house, the sprawling Tudor that Nathan had purchased when they were expecting Thomas, was silent except for the occasional stifled sob. I kept stealing glances at my sister-in-law, watching her hands twist the wedding ring she'd worn for 12 years. Do you want to talk about it? I finally asked as we turned onto her street. Megan shook her head, then changed her mind. Did you know? The question hit me like a physical blow. I suspected something, I admitted. At the gala, and Becca saw them together at Riverside Park. I was trying to figure out what to do when Mom called. I've known for months. Her voice was hollow, empty of the anger I'd expected. The late nights, the weekend site visits, the sudden business trips, all the classic signs. I just didn't know who until last week when I found a receipt for an emerald bracelet in his jacket. It wasn't for me. I gripped the steering wheel tighter. Why didn't you say anything? She gave a small, bitter laugh. To whom? Your parents, who think Nathan hung the moon? You? I know how much you love your brother, despite everything. Not despite this, I said firmly. Never despite this. Megan reached over and squeezed my hand. You've always been the good one, Emma. The real heart of the Mitchell family. We pulled into the driveway and I noticed the lights were on. Are the kids home? My sister is watching them. Megan's face crumpled. God, how am I going to tell them? How do I explain that their father has chosen another woman, another child over them? I turned off the engine but made no move to get out of the car. You don't have to do it tonight, or alone. She nodded, taking a deep breath to compose herself. Will you come in, just for a little while? I don't think I can face Lily's questions about where Nathan is just yet. Inside, Megan's sister Lily was reading to Thomas and Sophia in the living room. She looked up with a questioning expression that shifted to concern when she saw Megan's tear-stained face. Kids, Aunt Emma is here. Why don't you show her that science project you've been working on? Lily suggested, smoothly creating an opportunity for the adults to talk. As Thomas eagerly led me to the dining table where a solar system model was taking shape, I couldn't help but see Nathan in his features. The same determined set of his jaw, the same enthusiastic hand gestures. Sophia, quieter and more observant, simply watched me with her mother's thoughtful eyes. Dad was supposed to help us finish it, Thomas explained, pointing to the unpainted Mars and Jupiter. He promised he'd be home early tonight. The irony wasn't lost on me. While Nathan was blowing up his family, his son was still counting on him to help with planets. Well, I'm no astronaut, but I've been known to wield a mean paintbrush, I offered. What do you say we tackle these together? While the kids and I worked on the solar system, I could hear the murmur of Megan and Lily's voices from the kitchen, occasionally punctuated by a sharp intake of breath or a muffled sob. By the time we'd finished painting and were debating whether Pluto deserved inclusion, Thomas argued passionately that it did. Lily appeared in the doorway. Bedtime, munchkins. School tomorrow. Thomas frowned. But Dad's not home yet. The look that passed between Lily and Megan was heartbreaking. Dad had to work late, Megan said, her voice remarkably steady. He'll see you tomorrow. Now, teeth brushed, pajamas on. Aunt Emma and I need to talk grown-up stuff. After the children were upstairs, the three of us sat at the kitchen table, mugs of tea growing cold in our hands. What are you going to do? Lily asked Megan. Megan stared into her tea as if it held answers. Divorce him, obviously. Call a lawyer in the morning. Figure out custody arrangements, financial settlements. She said it all mechanically, like reciting a to-do list, for someone else. You can move in with me and Jeff, Lily offered immediately. We have the space, and the kids love their cousins. Megan shook her head. This is their home. I won't uproot them when they're already losing their father. You're not losing me. We all startled at Nathan's voice from the doorway. He stood there, keys in hand, looking both defiant and uncertain. How did you get in? Megan asked flatly. I still live here. It's still my house. I stood up so quickly my chair scraped against the floor. You forfeited any right to call. This your home the moment you decided to start a new family elsewhere. Nathan's eyes narrowed. This is between Megan and me, Emma. You need to stay out of it. Like hell I will. Lily also rose, moving protectively closer to Megan. The children are sleeping. If you're going to fight, take it outside. Nathan ran a hand through his hair, that familiar gesture that now made my skin crawl. I'm not here to fight. I just want to talk to my wife, alone. Ex-wife, Megan corrected, speaking for the first time since he'd entered. And anything you have to say, you can say in front of Emma and Lily. For a moment, he looked like he might argue, but something in Megan's expression stopped him. He pulled out a chair and sat down, maintaining a careful distance from the rest of us. I know you're angry. Angry doesn't begin to cover it, Megan interrupted. Try devastated, betrayed, disgusted. Nathan had the grace to look ashamed, if only momentarily. I never meant to hurt you. And yet here we are, I muttered. He shot me a warning look before turning back to Megan. I want to make this as painless as possible, for the kids' sake. Megan laughed, a harsh sound with no humor in it. Painless? You're leaving me for your pregnant mistress. You're giving Thomas and Sophia a half-sibling? They'll be forced to watch you raise while you drop in and out of their lives whenever it's convenient. There is no painless here, Nathan. I'm still their father, he insisted. Nothing changes that. Everything has changed, Megan said, her voice breaking. Everything. Nathan leaned forward, his expression earnest in that way that had always charmed clients and bankers. I'll be generous in the settlement. The house, child support, alimony, whatever. You need. I don't want to fight about money. I couldn't help myself. How magnanimous of you to compensate the family you're abandoning. His face hardened. You really need to mind your own business, Emma. She is minding her business, Lily interjected. Family is her business. Unlike you, she understands what that word actually means. Nathan stood up abruptly. I didn't come here to be ganged up on. Megan, call me when you're ready to discuss this rationally, or have your lawyer contact mine. As he turned to leave, Megan's quiet voice stopped him. Were you ever going to tell me? Or were you just going to wait until she started showing? He paused, his back to us. I was trying to find the right time. There is no right time to tell someone you've built a life with that you're throwing it away, I said. Nathan turned, his expression a strange mix of anger and something that might have been regret. I'm not expecting any of you to understand right now, but someday, I hope you'll see that this was the only way forward. After he left, the three of us sat in silence until Lily whispered, What an absolute bastard. Megan burst into tears. Then, real ones. Not the quiet, dignified weeping from earlier, but deep, body-racking sobs that seemed to come from someplace primal inside her. Lily and I moved to either side, holding her as she finally allowed herself to break. Later that night, after Lily had gone home and Megan had cried herself into fitful sleep on the couch, I sat in the darkened kitchen making calls. To my closest friend in real estate law. To the family therapist I knew through Cascade Creative's wellness program. To Becca, who listened without judgment as I poured out the whole sordid story. What are you going to do about your parents? She asked finally. I stared out the window at the moonlit garden where Thomas and Sophia played on weekends. I don't know yet. Dad's first instinct will be to protect the business, the Mitchell name. Mom will try to keep the peace, find some way to accept the my. Unacceptable. They'll probably expect me to do the same. And will you? The question hung in the air, weighted with all the years I'd compromised, smoothed things over, accepted the family dynamics that had always privileged Nathan's needs and wants above all else. No, I said finally. Not this time. My phone buzzed with a text from my father. Family meeting tomorrow, 10 a.m. at the office. Non-negotiable. The Mitchell Properties office occupied the top 2 floors of a downtown building with views of the Willamette River. I'd helped design the space years ago, one of my first projects after joining Cascade Creative. Modern but warm, it projected exactly the image my father wanted. Successful, established, but not ostentatious. Portland money, not California money, as he liked to say. When I arrived the next morning, the receptionist, who'd known me since I was in high school, gave me a sympathetic smile that told me news had already spread. They're in the conference room, she said quietly. All of them. All of them, as it turned out, included Nathan and Olivia. My mother sat at one end of the long table, her posture perfect as always, her face a careful mask. My father stood at the head, hands planted on the polished wood, looking every inch the patriarch. Nathan and Olivia sat side by side, their hands linked on the table in a deliberate display of unity. "Where's Megan?" I asked, remaining in the doorway. "This is a Mitchell family matter," my father replied. "Megan is family." "Not anymore," Nathan said quietly. The casual cruelty of those 3 words stole my breath. I walked slowly to the table and took a seat directly across from my brother. "Then I shouldn't be here either," I told them. "Because if Megan's not family, neither am I." My mother made a small, distressed sound. "Emma, please. This is difficult enough without dramatics." "Stating my position isn't being dramatic, Mom. It's being honest. Something this family could use more of." My father cleared his throat. "We're here to discuss how to move forward in a way that minimizes damage to everyone involved, especially the business." Of course. The business. Always the business. "Let me guess," I said, unable to keep the bitterness from my voice. "You've got a PR strategy, a way to spin this so Nathan doesn't come off as the selfish, cheating bastard he is." "Emma!" My mother looked genuinely shocked. "What would you call it, Mom? What pretty words would make this situation palatable to you?" My father stepped in, his voice measured. "Nathan has made a personal choice that affects his marriage. It's unfortunate, but divorces happen. Our concern now is ensuring that Mitchell Properties doesn't suffer, that our clients and partners don't lose confidence in us because of personal matters." "Personal matters," I repeated. "Is that what we're calling it when someone abandons their wife and children for their pregnant employee?" Nathan leaned forward. "I'm not abandoning my children. I will always be their father. A father who lives with another woman and her baby. A father who breaks promises, who teaches them that commitment means nothing, that family is disposable." "That's unfair," Olivia spoke up for the first time, her voice surprisingly steady. "Nathan loves Thomas and Sophia. This isn't about loving them less. It's about following his heart." I stared at her, momentarily speechless at the sheer, self-serving romanticism of her framing. "Following his heart? Did you practice that line, or does it come naturally to justify home-wrecking?" "That's enough," my father said sharply. "Personal attacks won't solve anything." "Nothing will solve this," I retorted. "There's no fixing what Nathan's done. There's only damage control, which is why we're really here, isn't it? Not to support Megan and the kids, but to make sure the Mitchell name doesn't get dragged through the mud." My father exchanged a look with Nathan that confirmed everything. "We've prepared a statement for when this becomes public. A mutual, amicable separation. A new relationship that developed after the marriage had already broken down. A commitment from all parties to co-parent peacefully." "Lies, in other words," I said flatly. "Messaging," my father corrected. "For everyone's benefit, including Thomas and Sophia." I looked around the table at my family. This group of people who shared my blood but suddenly felt like strangers. "And what does Megan get from this arrangement, besides being erased from the narrative?" "A generous settlement," Nathan answered, promptly. "The house? Full custody with liberal visitation for me. Financial security. But not the truth," I said. "Not the dignity of having her pain acknowledged." My mother reached across the table to take my hand, her expression pleading. "Emma, sweetheart, we know you're close to Megan. We know this is hard. But families weather these storms. They adapt. They find new ways forward." I withdrew my hand. "By pretending the storm never happened? By ignoring who caused it?" "By putting the family first," my father insisted. "Mitchell Properties supports dozens of families, including yours, Emma. Your marketing firm gets 30% of its business from us and our partners. We all need to remember what's truly at stake here." And there it was, the threat veiled, but unmistakable. Fall in line or face consequences. I'd heard it before, when I chose a different college than the Mitchell alma mater, when I refused to join the family business, when I dated a man my father deemed unsuitable for the Mitchell name. Each time I'd eventually compromised, found middle ground, kept the peace. But not this time. Are you threatening me, Dad? He had the decency to look uncomfortable. Of course not. I'm reminding you of our interconnectedness, of why unity matters right now. Unity behind Nathan, you mean? Unity in pretending what he did is acceptable. What I did, Nathan interjected, was be honest about my feelings, about wanting a different life. I turned to him, really looking at my brother, the boy I'd grown up with, the man he'd become. You could have been honest before getting another woman pregnant. You could have been honest before promising Thomas you'd help with his science project last night while you were busy blowing up his world. I'm doing the best I can in an impossible situation. An impossible situation you created, I reminded him. And now you want everyone else to bear the consequences while you get to start fresh with your new family. I won't do it, I cut him off. I won't pretend this is okay. I won't help craft the narrative that makes you the good guy. I won't abandon Megan and the kids just because you did. My father's expression hardened. Emma, consider your position carefully. I have, Dad, very carefully. I stood up, gathering my purse. Mitchell Properties is your legacy, not mine. If you want to use it as leverage to force me into complicity, go ahead. Cancel the contracts with Cascade Creative. I'll survive. This isn't about contracts, my mother protested. This is about family loyalty. Exactly, I agreed. And my loyalty is with the people who have been hurt, not the ones who caused the hurt. Nathan stood up too, his expression thunderous. So that's it? After everything, you're choosing Megan over your own brother? I'm choosing right over wrong, I corrected him. Something our parents never taught you to recognize. My father stepped between us, his businessman's composure cracking. Sit down, both of you. This meeting isn't over. It is for me, I said, moving toward the door. Call me when you're ready to talk about how to actually support Megan and the kids, not how to protect Nathan from the consequences of his actions. Emma Mitchell! My father's voice boomed across the conference room with the authority that had intimidated partners and competitors alike for decades. If you walk out that door, there will be repercussions. I paused at the threshold, turning to face my family one last time. There already are, Dad, for everyone except the person who deserves them. The next week passed in a blur of lawyers, therapists, and logistics. Megan, once the initial shock had subsided, transformed her pain into a focused determination that both surprised and impressed me. She hired Portland's most formidable divorce attorney, arranged emergency therapy sessions for the children, and began methodically documenting every aspect of the family's finances. I spent every spare moment helping, sitting with Thomas and Sophia while Megan met with lawyers, running interference when Nathan tried to see the kids before they were ready, fielding concerned calls from mutual friends who'd heard rumors but didn't know what to believe. You don't have to do all this, Megan told me one evening as we sat on her patio, glasses of wine in hand after the children were asleep. They're your family too. I know how hard this must be for you. I watched the sunset paint the sky in hues of pink and gold. They're making their choices. I'm making mine. She studied me for a long moment. Have you spoken to your parents since the meeting? Mom's called. I haven't answered. I swirled the wine in my glass. Dad sent a series of increasingly ominous emails about family duty and considering all perspectives. And Nathan? I shook my head. Not directly. His lawyer contacted Cascade Creative yesterday. They're terminating our contract for the downtown development project. Megan's eyes widened. They can't do that. You've already done months of work. They can with the right termination fee, which they've paid. I tried to keep my voice casual, though the loss of Mitchell Properties as a client had sent shockwaves through my firm. It's fine, We'll recover. It's not fine, Megan insisted. They're punishing you for standing with me. I couldn't deny it. The message from my father and brother couldn't have been clearer. Fall in line or face consequences. A test of wills and values that had been building for years. Let them, I said finally. If that's the kind of family they want to be, I'm better off without them. Megan reached across the table to squeeze my hand. You know the kids, and I will always be your family, right? No matter what happens with Nathan, with the divorce, you'll always have us. Her words brought unexpected tears to my eyes. I know. The following Sunday, I was helping Thomas practice for his spelling bee when the doorbell rang. Megan, who'd been sorting through photo albums in preparation for a mediation session, gave me a questioning look. Expecting someone? I shook. My head. Maybe Lily? When Megan opened the door, my mother stood on the porch, looking smaller and older than I remembered. She clutched her handbag with white-knuckled hands. Claire, Megan said, her voice carefully neutral. This is unexpected. I need to speak with my daughter, my mother replied, peering around Megan to where I stood in the hallway. I'll be in the backyard with Thomas, Megan told me, giving my arm a supportive squeeze as she passed. My mother stepped inside hesitantly, as if entering foreign territory, though she'd been to this house countless times for birthdays, holidays, Sunday dinners. I led her to the living room, where we sat on opposite ends of the sofa. How are you, Mom? She smoothed imaginary wrinkles from her skirt. I've been better. The situation, it's taking a toll on everyone. I waited, suspecting she hadn't. Come just to share that observation. Your father is beside himself, she continued when I didn't respond. The board is asking questions. Partners are calling. People talk. You know, especially in this city. I'm aware. She looked around. The living room, her gaze lingering on the family photos that still included Nathan. How are they? The children? Confused, hurt, angry. All the things you'd expect when your father chooses another family over you. My mother winced. It's not that simple, Emma. It really is, Mom. From their perspective, it's exactly that simple. She sighed, reaching into her purse to extract an envelope. Your father wanted me to give you this. I accepted it warily. What is it? An opportunity to reconsider your position. I opened the envelope to find a check for an amount that made my breath catch, enough to cover the lost revenue from Mitchell Properties and then some, along with a typed letter outlining conditions for what my father called family reconciliation. I would agree to attend family functions, including events where Olivia would be present. I would make no public statements about Nathan's divorce or new relationship. I would cease interfering in Nathan's relationship with his children. In exchange, Mitchell Properties would reinstate its contracts with Cascade Creative, and my father would establish a separate trust for Thomas and Sophia's education. I read it twice, then carefully refolded the letter and returned it to the envelope, along with the check. No, I said simply, handing it back to her. My mother didn't take it. Emma, be reasonable. Your father is offering a compromise. This isn't a compromise. It's a bribe wrapped in a gag order. It's a path back to family harmony. I laughed, the sound hollow even to my own ears. Harmony built on silence and pretense isn't harmony, Mom. It's compliance. And your alternative? She challenged, a rare flash of fire in her eyes. Permanent estrangement? Forcing everyone to choose sides? Depriving Thomas and Sophia of their grandparents, their extended family? The accusation stung, as she'd intended. It too. I'm not the one depriving anyone of anything. I'm not the one who broke this family. But you're the one refusing to help mend it. I stood up, needing physical distance from her manipulative logic. There's no mending without accountability, Mom. without acknowledgement of the harm done. Nathan has acknowledged. Nathan has justified, I corrected her. Dad has enabled. You have excused. No one has actually taken responsibility. My mother rose too, her composure slipping. What do you want, Emma? For Nathan to wear a scarlet letter? For your father and me to disown our son? For Olivia's baby to be born into rejection and judgment? I want the truth to matter, I said quietly. I want Megan's pain to matter. I want Thomas and Sophia to see that loyalty means something, that actions have consequences, that being a Mitchell doesn't make you immune to basic human decency. We stood facing each other, the generational divide between us never more apparent. My mother, raised to preserve family at all costs, to smooth over unpleasantness, to prioritize appearance over authenticity, and me, unwilling to accept those compromises any longer. Your father won't offer again, she said finally. I'm not asking him to. She picked up her handbag, a signal that she'd said what she'd come to say. I hope you don't come to regret this stance, Emma. Family is irreplaceable. As I walked her to the door, a thought occurred to me. Have you spent any time with Megan since this happened? With the kids? My mother looked startled by the question. No. It wouldn't be appropriate given the circumstances. The circumstances being that your son betrayed them? Why would that make it inappropriate for you to support them? She fumbled for words, finally settling on, It's complicated. It's really not. You've chosen Nathan, just like Dad has. Just like you always have. I opened the door. You're right. But don't pretend it's the only choice, or that my choice to stand with the people who were wronged is somehow less valid. After she left, I stood on the porch, watching her drive away, the envelope with my father's offer still in my hand. I felt a presence behind me and turned to find Thomas watching me, his face solemn. Was that Grandma? He asked. I nodded. Yes, buddy. She came to talk to me about some grown-up stuff. He was quiet for a moment, processing this. Is she mad at us too? Like Dad is? My heart broke all over again. Your dad isn't mad at you, Thomas, and neither is Grandma. Then why don't they come see us anymore? I crouched down to his level, searching for words that would comfort without lying. Sometimes adults make choices that are hard to understand. It doesn't mean they don't love you, it just means they're figuring things out. He nodded, his expression far too serious for a 12-year-old. Like how Dad is figuring out his new family with that lady. Something like that, I managed. Thomas studied me with eyes that saw too much. Are you going to leave us too? To go back to your real family? I pulled him into a fierce hug, fighting back tears. Never, I promised. You and your mom and Sophia are my real family too, and I'm not going anywhere. Over his shoulder, I saw Megan standing in the doorway, silent tears tracking down her face. In that moment, I knew with absolute certainty that I'd made the right choice, the only choice I could live with. I tore my father's letter in half, then in quarters, letting the pieces scatter in the spring breeze. Some bridges, once burned, weren't meant to be rebuilt. Some choices defined who you were more clearly than any family name ever could. The headline in Portland Business Weekly hit newsstands on a rainy Tuesday morning. Mitchell Properties heir embroiled in scandal as family empire shows cracks. I discovered it when a sympathetic colleague texted me a photo before I'd even had my first cup of coffee. Beneath the headline was a photo of Nathan leaving Mitchell Properties with Olivia, her hand protectively placed over her now visible pregnancy. The article itself was a masterpiece of careful innuendo and sources close to the family quotes, laying out the basic facts of Nathan's divorce and new relationship while hinting at deeper troubles within both the family and the business. My phone began ringing almost immediately. First Becca, then other colleagues, then clients concerned about how Cascade Creative would weather the loss of our biggest account. I answered what calls I could, delegated others to our PR manager, and silenced the rest. By noon, the story had spread to local news sites. By dinner, it had made it to the Portland social circuit's gossip networks. The carefully controlled narrative my father had tried to construct was unraveling in real time. I was reviewing portfolio options for a new client when Becca appeared in my office doorway, her expression grim. "Your brother's here." I looked up from my laptop in surprise. "Nathan, here at Cascade?" She nodded. "In the lobby. I told reception I'd check if you were available." "I'm not," I said automatically, then reconsidered. "Actually, send him in. Let's get this over with." A minute later, Nathan strode into my office, looking both impeccably dressed and utterly exhausted. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, and his normally perfect hair showed signs of agitated finger combing. "Have you seen it?" he demanded without preamble. "The article?" "Yes." He paced in front of my desk. "It's a hatchet job, full of half-truths and speculation. They're making it sound like the company's on the verge of collapse." "Is it?" I asked neutrally. "Of course not," he snapped. "But perception matters in this business. You know that better than anyone. 3 investors have already called Dad this morning, expressing concerns." I leaned back in my chair. "And you're here because we need to present a united front. Dad's calling a press conference tomorrow to address the rumors, show that the Mitchell family is solid despite personal matters." He made air quotes around the final phrase. "And you want me there, standing beside the family that cut me off." Nathan had the grace to look uncomfortable. "That was a misunderstanding. Dad was upset. He's willing to reinstate Cascade's contracts. No strings attached. No strings except public support for you and the company." "Is that so much to ask? We're still your family, Emma." I studied my brother, trying to reconcile the boy I'd grown up with and the man before me. "When's the last time you saw your children?" He stiffened. "What does that have to do with anything?" "Everything. When did you last see Thomas and Sophia?" "Megan's making it difficult," he hedged. "Her lawyer suggested we keep contact minimal until the custody arrangement is finalized." "So you've let a suggestion from a lawyer keep you from your children for what, 2 weeks now?" He looked away. "It's complicated." "And Olivia? How's she doing with all this public attention?" A flash of genuine emotion crossed his face. Worry, tenderness. "It's been hard on her. The stress isn't good for the baby." "I see," I said quietly. "So you're concerned about Olivia and your unborn child, but your existing children are a complication to be managed through lawyers." "That's not fair." "No, it's not," I agreed. "None of this is fair. Not to Megan, not to your children, not even to Olivia, who got involved with a married man and is now facing the public consequences. The only person this situation has been fair to is you, Nathan. You get to start over, build a new family, while everyone else deals with your wreckage." He slammed his hand on my desk. "I didn't come here to be lectured. I came to ask for your help. As my sister, as a PR professional, as someone who supposedly cares about this family. I do care. That's why I won't help you sweep this under the rug." I stood up, meeting his height. "If you want to improve the Mitchell family image, try being a better father to the children you already have. Try acknowledging the pain you've caused instead of hiding behind lawyers and press conferences." "So that's a no." "That's a no." He turned to leave, then paused at the door. "Dad was right about you. Always on your moral high horse, always thinking you know better than everyone else. For someone so concerned with family loyalty, you've been awfully quick to turn your back on your own." The irony was so thick I almost laughed. "That's rich coming from you." "Olivia's having a girl," he said abruptly. "We found out last week. your niece. But I guess you don't care about that either." The unexpected news hit me like a physical blow. A niece. Another child in this fractured family, innocent of the circumstances of her conception. "Congratulations," I said, my voice softer than I intended. "I hope you're a better father to her than you've been to Thomas and Sophia lately." After he left, I sat at my desk for a long time, staring out at the Portland skyline through the spring rain. A girl. A new Mitchell. Another life entangled in this mess. Whatever my feelings about Nathan and Olivia, the child deserved none of my anger or judgment. I was still lost in thought when Becca returned, closing the door behind her. "That looked intense," she observed. "Nathan wants me at a family press conference tomorrow, standing united behind Mitchell Properties and, by extension, him." "And you said no." I nodded. I said no. Becca sat in the chair Nathan had vacated. "Emma, we need to talk about the business implications of all this. We've lost 3 other clients this week, all with ties to Mitchell Properties." My stomach dropped. "Which ones?" "Riverfront Development, Hawthorne District Renovation, and Summit Investments just called to postpone their campaign launch." I closed my eyes briefly. Nearly 40% of our revenue, gone in a matter of days. My father's influence in Portland's business community ran deep, and he was clearly using it. "We'll recover," I said with more confidence than I felt. "We're the best creative firm in the city. Other clients will come." "We've got enough runway for maybe 4 months," Becca said bluntly. "After that, we start laying people off." The reality of what my stance against my family might cost wasn't just personal anymore. Cascade Creative employed 27 people, all of whom depended on their paychecks to support themselves and their families. "I'll figure something out," I promised, though I had no idea what that might be. Later that evening, I arrived at Megan's to find her sitting at the kitchen counter with a glass of red wine and the same Portland Business Weekly spread before her. "You've seen it," I said unnecessarily. "Hard to miss." She took a sip of wine. "Sophia's friend's mother called today to express her sympathy and get the real story." And I winced. "I'm sorry." "Don't be. It was inevitable." She pushed the magazine away. "Nathan called. He wants to see the kids this weekend." "Are you okay with that?" "It doesn't matter if I'm okay with it. They're his children, too." She sounded exhausted. "Thomas wants to go. Sophia says she doesn't, but I think she's just afraid of upsetting me." I sat beside her at the counter. "You're an amazing mother, you know that? Putting them first despite everything." She gave me a wan smile. "Sometimes I fantasize about being petty and vindictive, about using the kids as weapons the way some divorced parents do. But they deserve better than that, even if Nathan doesn't." We sat in companionable silence for a while, the rain pattering against the windows, the house quiet with the children already in bed. "He's having a girl," I said finally, "with Olivia." Megan's hand tightened around her wine glass, but her voice remained steady. "I figured it would be a girl. The universe has a twisted sense of humor like that." "Are you going to tell Thomas and Sophia about the baby?" "Eventually, when they're ready." She refilled her glass and offered me the bottle. "Did you know I always wanted a daughter? Before Sophia, I mean. I lost a baby between Thomas and her. A girl." "I didn't know that," I said softly. "I'm so sorry." Nathan was different then, supportive, present. He held me through it all. Her eyes grew distant. Sometimes I wonder if that's when things started to change. After the loss, after Sophia was born, like something in him broke and never quite healed right. I'd never considered that Nathan's betrayal might have roots in something so profound. It didn't excuse his actions, but it contextualized them in a way I hadn't previously understood. Have you ever asked him about it? Megan shook her head. What would be the point now? It wouldn't change anything. She took another sip of wine. Did I tell you I got a job offer? The abrupt change of subject took me by surprise. No, you didn't. That's wonderful. Before marrying Nathan, Megan had been an accomplished landscape architect. She'd put her career on hold when Thomas was born, taking only occasional consultation work over the years. Crawford Environmental Design. They want me to lead their residential division. Megan, that's perfect for you. She nodded, a genuine smile breaking through her melancholy. It feels right. Getting back to work, being financially independent, not relying on Nathan's support payments or the divorce settlement. When would you start? Next month, if I accept. They're flexible about hours because of the kids. She twisted her wine glass stem between her fingers. I've been thinking about the house, too. About selling it. Really? But you love this house. I loved it as our family home, she corrected. Now it just feels too big, too full of memories, too much to maintain on my own. She looked around the kitchen where we'd shared countless family meals. Plus, it was Nathan's choice, not mine. I'd like to live somewhere that's just ours, mine and the kids. I understood completely. A fresh start, untainted by betrayal and broken promises. Have you started looking? Not yet. I wanted to talk to you first. She hesitated. I know how much you've given up to stand with us, Emma. Your family relationships, your biggest client. I don't want you to lose anything else because of us. I haven't lost anything that matters, I assured her. Family isn't about blood or names. It's about who shows up, who stays, who puts love above everything else. Megan reached for my hand, squeezing it tightly. You've shown up every day since this happened. I don't know how I would have survived without you. You would have, I said with absolute certainty. You're the strongest person I know. The press conference I'd refused to attend was broadcast on local news the following day. My father, Nathan, and my mother stood shoulder to shoulder behind a podium emblazoned with the Mitchell Properties logo. Olivia was noticeably absent. Richard Mitchell spoke with the practiced confidence of a man accustomed to controlling narratives. He acknowledged Nathan's personal transition with diplomatic vagueness, emphasized the company's rock-solid financial position, and announced 2 new development projects as proof of Mitchell Properties' continued momentum. When a reporter dared to ask about family divisions and my conspicuous absence, my father smoothly deflected. My daughter is pursuing her own business interests at this time. The Mitchell family remains united in our commitment to Portland's growth and prosperity. It was masterfully done, if fundamentally dishonest. No mention of Megan or the children. No acknowledgement of the pain caused or the trust broken. Just business as usual, with a side of carefully managed personal scandal. I watched the broadcast from my office, feeling strangely detached, as if observing a play about characters who resembled people I once knew. The father who'd taught me to ride a bike was now a polished corporate performer, spinning half-truths with practiced ease. The brother who'd once been my closest confidant stood beside him, complicit in the airbrushing of his own failures. That evening, I received a text from an unexpected source. Olivia, thank you for not talking to the press. I know you could have made this much worse for all of us. I stared at the message, unsure how to respond. On one hand, her thanks seemed presumptuous, as if my silence was for her benefit rather than a desire to protect Thomas and Sophia from additional public exposure. On the other hand, the simple acknowledgement of what I hadn't done was more recognition than I'd received from anyone else, in my former family. That's not my style, I finally replied. This situation is painful enough without adding media fuel to the fire. Her response came quickly. Nathan says you hate me. I understand why you would. I considered ignoring this, ending the exchange before it became complicated, but something Curiosity, perhaps, or a desire to understand the woman who had unwittingly become the catalyst for my family's implosion, made me continue. "I don't hate you," I wrote. "I don't even know you. I hate what happened and how it happened. I hate the pain it's caused people I love." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally. I never meant to break up a family. By the time I found out I was pregnant, things between us were already serious. He told me his marriage was over in all but name, the classic line. I wondered if she truly believed it or just needed to in order to live with her choices. "I've heard that before," I replied. Another pause, then. "Would you meet me? Just once, just to talk. I'm not asking for forgiveness or approval. Just a chance to be seen as something more than the pregnant mistress." The request caught me off guard. Of all the scenarios I'd imagined for how this family drama might unfold, having coffee with Olivia Parker had never crossed my mind. My instinct was to refuse, out of loyalty to Megan, out of anger at the situation, out of fear of being pulled back into the Mitchell family orbit. But another part of me, the part that had always tried to see all sides of a story, that had built a career on understanding different perspectives, was undeniably curious. Who was this woman my brother had chosen over his family? What did she see in him that was worth such a price? "I need to think about it," I wrote finally. "I understand. The offer stands whenever you're ready." I put my phone down, unsettled by the exchange. Meeting Olivia felt like a betrayal of Megan. Not meeting her felt like refusing to acknowledge a reality that wasn't going away. The baby, my niece, would be born in a few months. She would be Thomas and Sophia's half-sister, a permanent connection between 2 fractured families. The next morning, I called Megan. "Olivia asked to meet me," I said without preamble. "Just talk." The silence on the other end of the line stretched for so long I thought we might have been disconnected. "Are you going to?" Megan asked finally, her voice carefully neutral. "I wanted to talk to you first. If you're not comfortable with it, I won't." Another long pause. "Why does she want to meet you?" "She says she wants me to see her as something more than the pregnant mistress." Her words, not mine. Megan made a sound that might have been a laugh or a sigh. Ironic, considering that's exactly what she is. "I know. But you're curious." I didn't deny it. "She's going to be in our lives in some way, through the kids, through Nathan. And she's carrying my niece." "You don't need my permission, Emma." "No, but I need to know it won't hurt you. Your feelings matter more to me than my curiosity." The line went quiet again, and I could almost see Megan, weighing her response, considering all angles as she did with every decision. "Meet her," she said finally. "See who she is, what she's like." "A beat then. Tell me afterward." We arranged to meet at a small coffee shop in the Pearl District, far from both Mitchell properties and the neighborhoods where Nathan and Megan lived. Neutral territory. I arrived early, choosing a table in the corner with a clear view of the door. Olivia entered at precisely 10 a.m., scanning the room until she spotted me. She wore a simple navy maternity dress that accentuated her 5-month pregnancy, her caramel hair pulled back in a neat ponytail. Up close, she looked younger than I'd remembered from the gala, barely 30. "Thank you for meeting me," she said, sliding into the seat across from me. "I wasn't sure you would." "Neither was I admitted. A barista approached, and Olivia ordered herbal tea. I noticed she didn't wear any jewelry except small pearl earrings. No flashy gifts from Nathan, at least not on display. Once we were alone again, an awkward silence fell between us. What exactly did one say to the woman who was having a baby with your married brother? "How are you feeling?" I asked finally, gesturing vaguely toward her bump. "Physically? Fine. The morning sickness passed. Now I'm just She placed a hand on her stomach. Growing. And emotionally? Her eyes met mine directly. Complicated. Happy about the baby. Stressed about the circumstances. Guilty about the pain caused. Angry about being reduced to a stereotype. She paused. Afraid of raising my daughter in a family that might always see her as the product of something shameful. Her honesty surprised me. I'd expected defensiveness, perhaps rehearsed justifications for her relationship with Nathan. Not this raw acknowledgement of the situation's complexity. "You must hate me," she said when I didn't immediately respond. "I told you before, I don't hate you. I don't even know you. But you blame me." I considered this carefully. I blame Nathan more. He's the one who broke vows, who had existing responsibilities. But you knew he was married. She didn't deny it. He told me things were over with Megan in all but name, that they'd been living separate lives for years, staying together for the children and appearances. The familiar excuse again. And you believed him? I wanted to. A flicker of self-awareness crossed her face. Maybe I should have questioned it more, asked why, if his marriage was so dead, he hadn't actually ended it before starting something with me. Maybe, I agreed. She stirred her tea slowly. I didn't plan to get pregnant. We were careful, but when it happened, she trailed off, then tried again. I've always wanted children. I'm 34. The timing wasn't ideal, but the fact that it was Nathan's baby felt right, somehow, like it was meant to be. I bit back a comment about what this meant to be moment had cost others. And now, with all the fallout, the press, the family drama, does it still feel right? She met my gaze steadily. The situation is a mess. I hate how it's happened, how people have been hurt. But the baby? My daughter? Yes, she still feels right. Despite myself, I felt a grudging respect for her conviction. She wasn't running from the consequences of her choices, wasn't pretending the situation was simpler or cleaner than it was. "Why did you want to meet me?" I asked. "Really?" "Because you're the only Mitchell who hasn't either welcomed me as Nathan's savior from an unhappy marriage or rejected me as the villain who destroyed a family." She leaned forward. "You seem to be the only one seeing the whole picture, not just the convenient parts." It was a surprisingly perceptive observation. "And what do you hope to gain from that?" "Not gain, understand." She hesitated. "Nathan talks about you, about how different you are from the rest of the family, how you've always charted your own course. And now that course has led me away from them." "Because of me," she acknowledged. "Because of us. Because of choices," I corrected. "Nathan's, my parents', mine." We fell silent as the barista brought our drinks. I studied Olivia over the rim of my coffee cup, trying to see beyond my preconceptions. She was intelligent, articulate, seemingly self-aware about her role in this mess. Not the home-wrecking temptress I'd initially imagined, but not an innocent, victim of circumstance either. "Nathan says you're close with Thomas and Sophia," she said, changing the subject. "That you've been there for them through all this. Someone needed to be." She flinched slightly at the implied criticism. "I want you to know that I'll never try to replace their mother, or compete with her, or speak ill of her to them." "Good," I said firmly. "Because Megan is a remarkable woman and an excellent mother who didn't deserve any of this." "I know." Olivia looked down at her tea. "If there had been any other way?" "There's always another way," I said. "Nathan could have ended his marriage before starting a relationship with you. You could have insisted on that. Everyone had choices." She nodded slowly. "You're right. We took the easy way, not the right way." She placed a hand on her stomach again, a protective gesture. "I can't undo what's happened, but I can try to do better going forward, for her sake, if nothing else. Despite all my reservations, I found myself believing her. Whether that belief was warranted remained to be seen, but her apparent sincerity was convincing. "Can I ask you something?" she said after another silence. "You can ask." "Nathan says his parents have always favored him, given him more chances, more support, more forgiveness. Is that true?" I almost laughed at the unexpectedness of the question. "Yes, absolutely true." "And that bothers you?" "It used to. Now I see it more clearly for what it was, a disservice to him as much as to me. They never required him to develop resilience or accountability because they were always there to smooth his path." I took a sip of my coffee. I had to build my own safety nets. He never did. Olivia considered this. "So you think he's unprepared for real consequences?" "I know he is. The question is whether you're prepared to deal with that reality when it affects you directly." She didn't answer immediately, which I found oddly reassuring. At least she was thinking about it, not rushing to defend him. "I love him," she said finally. "But I'm not blind to his flaws. This mess we've created, I've seen sides of him I'm not entirely comfortable with. The way he's handled things with Megan, with the children." She trailed off. "That's who he is," I said gently. "The person who does difficult things in the easiest possible way for himself." Something shifted in her expression. A recognition, perhaps, or the confirmation of a fear she'd been trying to ignore. "Why are you telling me this?" she asked. "Wouldn't it be in your interest, in Megan's interest, for my relationship with Nathan to fail?" "Maybe," I acknowledged. "But there's an innocent child involved now. Your daughter deserves parents who see each other clearly, who build something honest together." I paused. "And Thomas and Sophia deserve a stepmother who understands who their father really is, not who he pretends to be." Our conversation lasted another hour, meandering through topics both trivial and profound. I learned that Olivia had grown up in Eugene, studied environmental design at the University of Oregon, and come to Portland 5 years ago for a job at a sustainability consultancy. She'd met Nathan when Mitchell Properties contracted her firm for their eco-friendly housing development, a project that, ironically, Megan had initially consulted on before family obligations pulled her away. By the time we parted, I felt I had a more complete picture of the woman who had, willingly or not, become the catalyst for my family's transformation. Not a villain, not a victim, but a complex person who had made questionable choices for understandable reasons. I didn't particularly like her, but I no longer saw her as an abstraction. The pregnant mistress, but as Olivia Parker, soon-to-be mother of my niece. "Thank you for meeting me," she said as we stood to leave. "For giving me a chance to be a person to you, not just a situation." I nodded, uncertain what to say. I hadn't forgiven her, hadn't accepted what she and Nathan had done. But I had seen her humanity, and that felt important, if uncomfortable. "Take care of yourself," I said finally. "And the baby." She hesitated, then asked, "Would it be all right if I contacted you again? Not regularly, just sometimes? I don't have many people to talk to about all this." The request put me in an impossible position. Maintaining contact with Olivia felt disloyal to Megan, yet completely cutting her off meant closing a door to my future niece. "Let me think about it," I said. "This is all still very fresh." She nodded in understanding, and we parted ways outside the coffee shop. As I watched her walk away, one hand resting protectively on her growing bump, I felt a complex mix of emotions I couldn't quite unravel. Anger and compassion, judgment and understanding, all tangled together like the complicated family ties that now connected us despite everything. The next weekend brought a milestone I'd been dreading. Nathan's first overnight visit with Thomas and Sophia. Megan had prepared them as best she could, explaining that they would be staying at Dad's new apartment, and yes, Olivia would be there. But no, they didn't have to hug her if they didn't want to. "It's just 2 nights," she told me Friday afternoon, as we packed their overnight bags. 48 hours, they'll be fine. I wasn't sure if she was trying to convince me or herself. Thomas seemed excited about the visit, curious about his father's new home, asking if he'd have his own room. There, Sophia was more reserved, folding her clothes with meticulous precision, her face a careful mask that reminded me painfully of my mother. "What if I don't like it there?" she asked quietly when Megan stepped out of the room. I sat beside her, on the bed. "Then you call Mom or me and we'll come get you." She nodded, carefully placing her stuffed rabbit in the bag. "Will Olivia be nice to me?" "I think she'll try very hard to be," I said honestly. "Are you worried about meeting her?" Sophia considered this with the seriousness only a 10-year-old could muster. "I'm worried she'll try to be my new mom, or that Dad will love her baby more than us." My heart broke a little at her perceptiveness. "Your dad loves you and Thomas very much," I said, choosing my words carefully. "And no one could ever replace your mom. Olivia knows that." "Have you met her?" I hesitated, unsure how much to share. "Yes, once." "Is she pretty?" I searched for a neutral description. "She seems nice. And she's going to have a baby, your half-sister." Sophia's small face scrunched in confusion. "Will the baby be my sister or not? Why, half?" I wrapped an arm around her shoulders. "She'll be your sister because you share a dad. Half just means you don't share the same mom too. Like how you and Dad are brother and sister, but you don't act like it anymore?" Children had an uncanny ability to cut straight to the heart of adult complications. Something like that. But your relationship with your sister will be different. You'll get to help decide what kind of sisters you want to be to each other. She seemed to accept this, returning to her packing with renewed focus. When Nathan arrived to pick them up, the awkwardness was palpable. He stood in the foyer, not quite entering the house that had been his home for over a decade, making stilted small talk about traffic and weekend weather. Thomas bounded down the stairs with his backpack, eager, despite everything. Sophia followed more slowly, clutching her overnight bag with white knuckles. Megan handed Nathan a printed sheet of paper. Their schedules, medications, emergency contacts. Sophia needs her inhaler if she's going to be around pets. Does Olivia have pets? Nathan looked momentarily blank, as if he'd never considered this question. "A cat, I think, but it's hypoallergenic." "No cat is truly hypoallergenic," Megan said tightly. "Just make sure the inhaler is accessible." He nodded, folding the paper into his pocket without reading it. "We'll be fine. I've taken care of my own kids before." The comment hung in the air, a reminder of how much had changed. These were his kids, but he hadn't taken care of them alone for more than a few hours in recent memory. Megan had always been the primary caregiver, the one who knew about inhalers and allergies and favorite bedtime stories. "Call if you need anything," I told the children, crouching to give each a tight hug. "Anytime, day or night." "They'll be too busy having fun," Nathan said with forced cheer. "I've got the new PlayStation set up, and we're going to that trampoline park tomorrow." Thomas brightened, but Sophia just clutched her bag tighter. As they walked toward Nathan's Range Rover, she turned back once, her small face a study in uncertainty. I waved encouragingly, holding my smile until they drove away. Megan and I stared at the empty driveway for a long moment. "They'll be okay," I said, trying to sound confident. "I know," she replied. But neither of us moved from the doorway for several minutes, as if our continued vigil could somehow protect Thomas and Sophia as they entered this new chapter of their fractured family life. That night, Megan and I ordered takeout and opened a bottle of wine, both of us checking our phones with embarrassing frequency. When Thomas finally called at bedtime, we put him on speaker. "Dad's apartment is really big," he reported. "And it has a pool in the building. And Olivia made tacos for dinner." "That sounds nice," Megan said, her voice admirably steady. "Did you brush your teeth?" "Dad said I could do it in the morning." I saw Megan's jaw tighten, but she didn't. Comment on this departure from routine. "Is Sophia there? Can I say goodnight to her too?" "She's in her room. She said her tummy hurts." Megan and I exchanged concerned glances. "Can you ask Dad to put her on the phone, please?" We heard muffled conversation, then Sophia's small voice. "Hi, Mom." "Hey, sweetheart. Thomas says you're not feeling well?" My stomach hurts. Her voice was thin and slightly tremulous. And I forgot Hoppy. Hoppy was the stuffed rabbit she'd slept with since infancy. "Oh, honey, do you want me to bring him over?" Nathan's voice interrupted in the background. "She's fine, Megan. Kids forget things. She'll survive one night without a stuffed animal." Megan's knuckles whitened around her wine glass, but her voice remained gentle. "Sophia, is it a bad tummy ache or just a little one?" "Just little," Sophia said, though something in her tone suggested otherwise. "Dad says I'm just nervous about the new place." "That's probably true," Megan agreed. "New places can make our tummies feel funny. Do you want to come home?" "It's okay if you do." Nathan's voice again, louder this time. "She doesn't need to come home. She's fine. We're all fine." I found myself clenching my fists at his dismissive tone. This was exactly what I'd feared. Nathan prioritizing the appearance of a successful first visit over his children's actual needs and feelings. "Let me talk to your dad," Megan said finally, her patience clearly wearing thin. The phone rustled, then Nathan came on the line. "She's fine, Megan. You're making it worse by suggesting she can bail at the first sign of discomfort." "She's 10, Nathan. And she's dealing with her parents' divorce, her father's new girlfriend, and sleeping in a strange place. If she wants to come home, I'm coming to get her." And undermine my relationship with her even further? Great co-parenting. I could practically hear Megan counting to 10 before she responded. "Put Sophia back on, please." More rustling. Then Sophia's voice again. "Mom?" "Sweetheart, listen to me. If you want to try staying the night, that's okay. If you want to come home, that's okay too. It's completely your choice." A long pause. Then, so quietly, we almost missed it. "I want to try." "That's my brave girl," Megan said warmly. "Call me anytime if you change your mind, okay? Even in the middle of the night." After they hung up, Megan sat motionless, staring at her phone. "This is going to be harder than I thought," she said. Finally. "You handled it perfectly," I assured her. "Did I? Maybe Nathan's right. Maybe I'm making it worse by giving her an escape route. Or maybe you're teaching her that her feelings matter, that she has agency even in difficult situations." I refilled our wine glasses. That's a lesson I wish someone had taught me earlier in life. Megan looked at me thoughtfully. "You never talk much about your childhood, about what it was like growing up in the Mitchell family." I shrugged. "Nothing dramatic to tell. My parents always favored Nathan. He was the son, the heir to the business, the one who could carry on the Mitchell name. I was supplementary." That must have hurt. "It did," I acknowledged, "but it also made me self-reliant, independent. While Nathan was being handed everything, I was building things for myself. In some ways, it was a gift." Megan tilted her head. "Is that why you've been so supportive through all this? Because you know what it feels like to be the less favored one?" The question caught me off guard with its insight. "Maybe," I said slowly. "I know what it's like to have your feelings dismissed, to be treated as less important than someone else's convenience or ego. I wouldn't wish that on anyone, especially children. She reached across the table to squeeze my hand. Well, I'm grateful, whatever the reason. I don't know if I could have faced these past weeks alone. Despite our concerns, the weekend passed without major incident. Sophia's stomachache subsided, Thomas loved the trampoline park, and by Sunday evening, both children returned home intact, if somewhat subdued. Sophia mentioned that Olivia had been nice but weird, while Thomas was full of stories about the apartment building's amenities and the huge TV in Nathan's living room. "Did you meet any of the neighbors?" Megan asked as she unpacked their bags. Thomas shook his head. "Dad said we should be quiet in the hallways because the neighbors don't like noise, but I heard them fighting." Megan paused in her unpacking. "Fighting? Who?" "Dad and Olivia," Thomas said matter-of-factly. "Last night after we went to bed, she was crying about something, and Dad was saying really loud that she was being unreasonable." Megan and I exchanged glances. "Do you know what they were fighting about?" I asked carefully. Thomas shrugged. "Something about a doctor's appointment and work. Dad kept saying he had an important meeting he couldn't miss." So Nathan was already prioritizing work over Olivia's pregnancy, a familiar pattern emerging in his new relationship. I felt a twinge of vindication followed immediately by guilt. Whatever issues Nathan and Olivia had, they would ultimately affect the innocent child they were bringing into the world. The following week brought new challenges at Cascade Creative. The loss of Mitchell Properties and its associated accounts had created a significant revenue gap, one that wasn't easily filled in Portland's competitive marketing landscape. "We need to consider restructuring," Becca said during our weekly leadership meeting. "Streamlining staff, focusing on our most profitable service lines." "Layoffs, you mean?" I said flatly. She nodded, her expression grim. "At least 4 positions, maybe more if we can't secure new business by the end of the quarter." The thought of letting people go, people who had done nothing wrong except work for a company caught in the crossfire of my family drama, made me physically ill. "What about a capital injection? I could put in some of my savings, enough to buy us a few more months to rebuild the client base." Becca shook her head. "That's a generous offer, but it's not sustainable. We need recurring revenue, not a one-time cash infusion." I stared out the window at the Portland skyline, wondering how things had unraveled so quickly. Just months ago, Cascade Creative had been thriving, on track for our best year ever. Now we were discussing layoffs and downsizing, all because I'd refused to stand alongside my brother as he abandoned his family. "I'll figure something out," I promised, though I had no idea what that might be. Later that afternoon, as I was reviewing potential new client opportunities, my assistant knocked on my door. "Emma, there's someone here to see you. She doesn't have an appointment, but she's quite insistent." I looked up, expecting perhaps another reporter seeking comment on the Mitchell family saga. Instead, Claire Mitchell stood in my doorway, looking uncharacteristically uncertain. "Mom," I said, surprised. "What are you doing here?" She stepped into my office, closing the door behind her. "I wanted to see you. It's been weeks." "You know where to find me," I pointed out. "You just haven't tried." She sighed, settling into the chair across from my desk. "That's fair. I haven't handled any of this well." I studied my mother, noticing the subtle signs of strain, the tightness around her eyes, the slight tremor, in her usually steady hands. "Why now?" "I had lunch with Olivia yesterday," she said, surprising me. "At your father's insistence. A getting-to-know-you meal that was about as comfortable as you'd expect." I raised an eyebrow. And she mentioned that she'd met with you, that you'd been civil, even kind in your way. It made me realize how little effort I've made, compared to you. This was unexpected. My mother acknowledging a shortcoming? I met with her because I wanted to understand the situation better, for Thomas and Sophia's sake. "How are they?" she asked, genuine concern in her voice. "I miss them." "They miss you too," I said honestly. "Thomas asked last week why Grandma doesn't visit anymore." She flinched. "I wasn't sure if I'd be welcome, with everything that's happened." "They're children, Mom. They don't understand. Adult divisions and loyalties. They just know their grandmother disappeared from their lives at the same time their father did." Shame flashed across her face. "I've handled this terribly, haven't I?" "Yes," I agreed, but gently. "But it's not too late to fix it." She twisted her wedding ring nervously, a gesture I'd seen thousands of times throughout my childhood. "Your father thinks it would be disloyal to Nathan, spending time with Megan and the children without him." "And what do you think?" She looked startled by the question, as if her own opinion was a novel concept. I think they're my grandchildren, regardless of what's happened between their parents. I think they deserve better from me." I felt a glimmer of hope, the first sign that someone in my family besides me might be willing to put the children's needs above Nathan's comfort. "Megan would welcome your involvement," I said. "She's never tried to keep you away." "Really? Even after how we've behaved?" "Really. She knows how much Thomas and Sophia love you. That's all that matters to her." My mother's composure cracked slightly, her eyes growing damp. "I've been a coward, Emma, taking the path of least resistance, as I always have." I couldn't disagree with her self-assessment, but seeing her vulnerability softened my anger. "Why, are you really here, Mom?" She took a deep breath. "To apologize, to you, primarily, for not standing up for what's right. For putting Nathan's needs above everyone else's, including yours. It's a pattern I've followed your entire life, and I'm only now seeing how damaging it's been." I stared at her, momentarily speechless. In 34 years, I couldn't recall my mother ever apologizing to me for anything substantive. "What changed?" "Meeting Olivia, oddly enough," she admitted. "Seeing how young she is, how uncertain beneath that confident exterior. Realizing that Nathan has done to his first family exactly what your father threatened to do to us once." This was news to me. "Dad threatened to leave?" She nodded, not meeting my eyes. "When you were about 5, Nathan 7, he had an affair with his executive assistant, so cliché, I know. He was prepared to leave us for her until she ended things unexpectedly." She gave a bitter laugh. I always wondered if she saw something in him I was too blinded by love to recognize. Struggled to process this revelation. "You never told us. Of course not. We worked through it, as your father said. But something changed between us after that. I stopped trusting him completely. And she hesitated. He became more controlling. About the public image, about how we appeared to others. The perfect Mitchell family became his obsession. Pieces of my childhood suddenly clicked into place. My father's insistence on flawless family photos, his rage when Nathan or I caused any public embarrassment, his preoccupation with maintaining the Mitchell reputation at all costs. And now, Nathan's following in his footsteps, I said. "The pattern repeats," my mother agreed sadly. "But I don't want to repeat my mistakes. I don't want Thomas and Sophia feeling what you felt. Less important, less valued, less loved." I wanted to believe her, but decades of experience made me cautious. "Does Dad know you're here?" She shook her head. "He thinks I'm at my book club. He wouldn't understand this conversation." "But you came anyway." "I came anyway," she confirmed, straightening her shoulders. "I'm trying to be braver, Emma. To make my own choices, not just the ones that keep the peace." Despite everything, I felt a surge of pride in my mother. Small steps, but significant ones for a woman who had spent her life accommodating others at her own expense. "Would you like to see the children?" I asked. They're having dinner at our place tonight. You could join us." Her face lit up, then dimmed with uncertainty. "Are you sure Megan would be comfortable with that?" "Not completely," I admitted. "But I think it's worth trying. For the kids." We made arrangements for her to come to my downtown condo later that evening. After she left, I sat at my desk for a long time, processing the conversation. My mother's visit represented the first crack in the united front my family had presented since Nathan's revelation. A small one, perhaps, but significant. I called Megan immediately to discuss the unexpected development. "Your mother wants to see the kids?" she asked, surprised. "Without Nathan?" "Apparently so," I confirmed. "She seems genuinely remorseful about how she's handled things. I told her she could join us for dinner tonight, but I wanted to check with you first." Megan was quiet for a moment. "The children would love to see her," she said finally, "and I don't want to be the one keeping them from their grandmother." "Are you sure? We can make it another time if it's too much right now." "No, it's fine. Actually, it might be good to have her see how we're managing without Nathan. That life goes on, that we're okay." I admired Megan's capacity for grace in a situation where bitterness would have been entirely justified. "You're a better person than I am," I told her. She laughed softly. "No, just more practiced at putting the children first. Speaking of which, I need your help with something else. Thomas has a science fair coming up, and the project he wants to do requires adult supervision I can't provide while working on this Crawford proposal. Let me guess. Something involving power tools or potentially explosive chemicals." "Volcano," she confirmed. "Very original." "I'll pick him up from school tomorrow and we'll get started. Sophia can help too if she wants." "Thanks, Emma. You're a lifesaver." That evening, my small condo filled with the kind of family chaos I'd come to cherish. Thomas explaining his volcano vision in enthusiastic detail, Sophia setting the table with meticulous care, Megan adding final touches to the lasagna we'd prepared together. When the doorbell rang, a momentary hush fell over the scene. "I'll get it," I said, catching Megan's eye. She nodded, offering a small, encouraging smile. My mother stood in the hallway, holding a bakery box and looking uncharacteristically nervous. "I brought dessert," she said. "Those chocolate eclairs Thomas loves." "Grandma!" Thomas spotted her from the kitchen and raced over, throwing his arms around her waist. Sophia followed more cautiously, but her face brightened when my mother crouched to embrace her. "I've missed you two so much," my mother said, her voice thick with emotion. "You've grown since I last saw you." "It's only been like a month, Grandma," Thomas pointed out with a child's blunt honesty. My mother winced slightly. "Still too long," she said, smoothing his hair. Dinner was initially awkward, with conversations sticking to safe topics: school, Thomas's volcano plans, a book Sophia was reading. My mother seemed uncertain of her role in this new configuration, sitting stiffly at first, watching Megan and me interact with the children with a mixture of surprise and what looked like envy. Gradually, though, the natural warmth of the children and Megan's gracious hosting softened the atmosphere. By dessert, my mother was laughing at Thomas's recreation of a classroom mishap involving the class hamster and a substitute teacher's toupee. After the children went to the living room to watch a show, the three of us adults sat with coffee at the kitchen table. The moment of reckoning finally arrived. "Thank you for including me tonight," my mother said to Megan. "I wouldn't have blamed you if you'd refused." Megan stirred her coffee slowly. "The children love you, Claire. I wouldn't keep you from them because of Nathan's choices." My mother looked down at her cup. "I owe you an apology for how Richard and I have handled this situation, for not being there for you and the children when you needed support." "Why weren't you?" Megan asked directly. "We've been family for 12 years. I thought we had a relationship independent of Nathan." We did. We do, my mother insisted. But Richard was adamant that we present a united front, that supporting Nathan meant— She trailed off, embarrassed. Meant abandoning us, Megan finished for her. The inconvenient first family. My mother nodded, unable to deny the harsh truth. I was wrong to go along with it. I've always gone along, always chosen the path of least resistance. She glanced at me. Emma's been braver than I ever was. Megan considered this. I'm not interested in assigning blame or creating more division, she said finally. But I do need to know, if you want to be part of the children's lives going forward, it has to be reliable. They can't handle another disappearance. I understand, my mother said solemnly. I want to be present for them, consistently. Whatever that looks like with our complicated family situation. It means sometimes seeing them without Nathan, I pointed out. It means respecting Megan's role as their primary parent. It means not trying to smooth things over or pressure anyone into family gatherings that might be unhealthy or premature. My mother straightened her shoulders. I can do that. I want to do that. Megan studied her for a long moment, then nodded. Then you're welcome in our lives, Claire. The children need all the love and stability they can get right now. Later, as I walked my mother to her car, she paused on the sidewalk, looking up at my condo building with a wistful expression. You've created something beautiful here, Emma, with Megan and the children, a real family. We're figuring it out. As we go, I said. It's not always easy. She touched my arm hesitantly. I'm proud of you. For standing by your principles, for being there when it mattered. I should have told you that a long time ago, about many things. The simple acknowledgement unlocked something tight in my chest. Thank you, that means a lot. Richard will come around eventually, she said, though she didn't sound entirely convinced. He's stubborn, but he's not heartless. He misses you, though he'd never admit it. I wasn't as confident about my father's capacity for change, but I appreciated her optimism. One step at a time, Mom. Tonight was a good start. She hugged me before getting into her car, a real hug, not the perfunctory embrace she'd performed at family functions for years. I'll call about taking the kids to the Science Museum this weekend if that's okay with Megan. I think she'd welcome the break, I said, and they'd love it. As I watched her drive away, I felt cautiously hopeful for the first time in weeks. The Mitchell family would never be what it once was, but perhaps something new and more authentic could emerge from the wreckage, something built on honesty rather than appearances, on genuine connection rather than obligation. The following day at Cascade Creative, I was reviewing potential new business opportunities when my assistant buzzed me. There's a Mr. Crawford here to see you. He doesn't have an appointment. Robert Crawford was the founder and CEO of Crawford Environmental Design, the firm that had offered Megan a position. I'd never met him, though his reputation in Portland business circles was stellar. Send him in, I said, curious and slightly concerned. Had something happened with Megan's job? Offer? Robert Crawford was in his early 60s, with silver hair and the weathered complexion of someone who spent considerable time outdoors. He strode into my office with the confident bearing of a successful entrepreneur. Emma Mitchell, he said, extending his hand. Robert Crawford. Thank you for seeing me without notice. Of course, I replied, shaking his hand. What can I do for you, Mr. Crawford? He settled into the chair across from my desk. I'll get straight to the point. I'm interested in discussing a potential partnership between Crawford Environmental and Cascade Creative. I raised an eyebrow. A partnership? What kind of partnership? The mutually beneficial kind, he said with a slight smile. My firm has expanded significantly over the past 2 years. New offices in Seattle and Denver, a growing client base, and frankly, marketing needs that have outgrown our in-house capabilities. And you're approaching us because your firm does excellent work. I've followed your campaigns for years, particularly your sustainability messaging for that coffee company. What was it called? Bean Conscious, I supplied. Exactly. Brilliant integration of environmental messaging without the preachy overtones that turn consumers off. He leaned forward. But I'll be honest with you, Ms. Mitchell. I'm also here because Megan Collins speaks very highly of you, both professionally and personally. So this was about Megan. She's an extraordinary woman, I agreed, and a talented landscape architect. You're fortunate to have her joining your team. Crawford nodded. I've been trying to recruit her for years. She's exactly the kind of innovative thinker we need. He paused. She also mentioned your firm has recently lost some significant accounts due to family circumstances. I stiffened slightly. Our business situation is complex but manageable. I'm sure it is, but I'm offering a genuine opportunity here. Ms. Mitchell, Crawford Environmental has marketing needs that align perfectly with Cascade Creative's expertise. And unlike some in the Portland business community, I don't base my professional decisions on personal vendettas or family politics. The implied criticism of my father and Nathan wasn't subtle. What exactly are you proposing, Mr. Crawford? A 6-month contract to start. Branding for our Denver office, digital strategy for our expanded residential services, and a complete overhaul of our corporate materials to reflect our growth. If it goes well, we discuss a longer-term arrangement. I tried to keep my expression neutral despite the surge of hope his words inspired. That's a significant engagement. With a significant budget, he confirmed. Enough to offset what you've lost and then some, I believe. It sounded too good to be true. Why us specifically? There are other agencies in Portland with strong environmental credentials. Crawford smiled. 3 reasons. First, your work truly is exceptional. Second, I believe in supporting businesses that align with my values, and standing by family in times of crisis is a value I respect deeply. And third, his smile widened, I've disliked Richard Mitchell for 30 years, and the thought of poaching his daughter's agency from under his nose gives me a satisfaction I'm not ashamed to admit. I couldn't help laughing at his honesty. At least you're straightforward about your motivations. Always. Life's too short for games, he agreed. So, Ms. Mitchell, are you interested in discussing details? The opportunity Crawford offered could save Cascade Creative from layoffs, and downsizing could provide the breathing room we needed to rebuild our client base independent of Mitchell Properties. It was exactly what we needed, arriving at precisely the right moment. Yet I hesitated. Did Megan put you up to this? Put me up to it? No. Mentioned your situation? Yes. Crawford looked thoughtful. Does it matter? The business need is genuine. Your firm's qualifications are genuine. The fact that it helps someone I respect who's going through a difficult time is a bonus. He was right, of course. In business, motivations often mattered less than results. And Crawford Environmental was exactly the kind of client Cascade Creative wanted. Innovative, growth-oriented, values-driven. I'd be very interested in discussing details, I said finally, but I want to be clear. We'd need to win this business on merit, not sympathy or some corporate version of revenge. Crawford's expression shifted to respect. I wouldn't offer otherwise. My board wouldn't approve a partnership based on personal considerations, no matter how satisfying. He reached into his briefcase and extracted a folder. Here's our initial RFP. Review it, have your team prepare a proposal, and we'll proceed like any normal business relationship. As he stood to leave, he added, though I should mention that Vertex Design and Hammond Partners are also being invited to pitch. Both were significant competitors of Cascade Creative. This wasn't charity. It was a genuine business opportunity that we would have to earn. We'll deliver our best work, I promised. After Crawford left, I sat at my desk reviewing the RFP, a complex mix of emotions washing over me. Relief at the potential lifeline for my business. Gratitude toward Megan for whatever role she'd played in making the connection. And underneath it all, a quiet satisfaction that perhaps the Mitchell family influence wasn't as all-encompassing as my father had always believed. I called Becca into my office to share the news. "This could save us," she said after reviewing the RFP. "If we win it." "We will," I said with newfound determination. "We have to." That evening, as Thomas and I constructed his volcano at my dining table, Megan stopped by after her final interview with Crawford Environmental. "So," I said casually as she hung up her coat, "Robert Crawford paid me a visit today." She had the grace to look slightly embarrassed. "Did he? How interesting." "Very interesting. Almost as interesting as the substantial RFP he left for Cascade. Creative to bid on." Megan busied herself examining Thomas's volcano progress. "That sounds like a good opportunity for your firm." "Megan," I said, waiting until she met my eyes, "did you have anything to do with this?" She shrugged, a small smile playing at her lips. "I may have mentioned during my interview that my children's aunt runs the best creative agency in Portland, one that happens to be looking for new clients due to some unfortunate family circumstances." "And that's all?" "I also might have shown him your future Portland sustainability campaign while discussing my vision for integrating environmental messaging into urban design." Her smile widened. He was very impressed. I shook my head, torn between amusement and gratitude. "You didn't have to do that." "Of course I did," she said simply. "You've been there for us through everything. This was the least I could do." She glanced at Thomas, who was happily mixing baking soda with red food coloring. "Besides, Crawford Environmental is legitimately expanding. They need a good agency. It's a win-win." I hugged her impulsively. "Thank you." She returned. The embrace. That's what family does, Emma. The real kind. 6 months could change everything. The Portland summer had faded into a crisp autumn, painting the city in shades of amber and gold. I stood in the Crawford Environmental office courtyard, watching as Megan unveiled her design for their new sustainable garden space, a project that had quickly become her signature achievement at the firm. "The living wall will filter rainwater while providing habitat for native pollinators," she explained to the gathered employees and press. Her confidence was striking. This was a woman who had rediscovered her professional identity, who had built something beautiful from the ashes of her personal life. Robert Crawford beamed beside her, clearly pleased with both the design and the woman he'd hired to create it. After the presentation, as guests mingled and explored the garden features, he made his way to where I stood. "Your campaign launch for our residential division exceeded projections by 30%, he said without preamble. "The board is impressed." "I'm glad to hear it," I replied. "Though I suspect Megan's designs sell themselves." He laughed. "Don't undersell your contribution, Emma. The Living Spaces, Living Planet messaging framework you developed has transformed how we communicate with clients." He glanced toward Megan, who was answering questions from a local environmental reporter. "She's extraordinary, isn't she? In 6 months, she's revolutionized our approach to residential design." "She always was," I said. "She just needed the right opportunity to shine." Crawford nodded thoughtfully. "Sometimes life's hardest blows lead us where we need to be." He excused himself to speak with other guests, leaving me to reflect on the truth of his words. The past 6 months had indeed been transformative, not just for Megan, but for all of us. Cascade Creative had not only secured the Crawford Environmental contract, but leveraged it to attract 3 other sustainability-focused clients. We'd avoided layoffs and were actually hiring again. The Mitchell Properties shadow, which had once seemed so threatening, had receded as we built our own path forward. Thomas and Sophia had settled into a new routine. Weekdays and every other weekend with Megan in the charming craftsman bungalow she'd purchased in a family-friendly neighborhood. Alternate weekends with Nathan and Olivia. The transition hadn't been seamless, but it had been manageable, thanks largely to Megan's unwavering focus on the children's well-being. My mother had kept her promise, becoming a consistent presence in Thomas and Sophia's lives. She took them to museums and parks, attended school events, and even stayed overnight occasionally when Megan needed coverage for work trips. This new, more independent Claire Mitchell was a revelation, still elegant and proper, but with a quiet strength that had previously been buried under decades of accommodation. As for my father, the situation remained complicated. We'd spoken, twice, brief, awkward conversations at business functions where avoiding each other would have created more attention than a cordial exchange. He remained stiffly formal, unwilling or unable to acknowledge the fundamental injustice at the heart of our family fracture. Mitchell Properties had recovered from the temporary turbulence caused by Nathan's scandal, and with that stability came a return to the status quo, at least in my father's mind. Nathan and I maintained a careful distance. We exchanged necessary communications about the children, but avoided deeper conversations. I'd seen him at Thomas's baseball games and Sophia's piano recital, both of us positioned at opposite ends of the audience, acknowledging each other with tight nods. The vast space between us was filled with unspoken words, unresolved feelings, and the awareness that some bridges once burned could never be fully reconstructed. And then there was Olivia and the baby, my niece, Aurora Claire Mitchell, born on a stormy August night. Despite my complicated feelings about the circumstances of her birth, I couldn't deny the pull of family connection. When Olivia had texted a photo of the newborn, tiny and perfect with a shock of dark hair, something in me had softened. "Would you like to meet her?" Megan asked one evening as we sat on her porch, watching Thomas and Sophia play in the yard, with their grandmother. She'd noticed me looking at the baby photo on my phone. I glanced at her, surprised. "You wouldn't mind?" She sipped her wine thoughtfully. "Aurora is Thomas and Sophia's sister. She'll be part of their lives whether I like it or not, and you're her aunt." She shrugged. "Family is messy, but it's still family." Her generosity humbled me. "How do you do that? Find grace where most people would only feel bitterness?" "Practice," she said with a small smile, "and perspective. The children are watching how I handle this. What lessons do I want them to learn? That pain should be answered with more pain, or that we can choose a different path." The following weekend, I found myself standing outside Nathan and Olivia's apartment, a small gift bag in hand, my heart hammering with unexpected nervousness. Nathan opened the door, surprise flashing across his face. "Emma, I didn't expect—" He stopped, recalibrating. "Come in." The apartment was bright and modern, with baby items scattered among the designer furniture, a strange juxtaposition of Nathan's sleek aesthetic and the chaotic reality of new parenthood. Olivia sat on the couch, Aurora asleep on her chest. She looked exhausted, but brightened when she saw me. "You came," she said simply. "I brought something for Aurora," I replied, holding out the gift bag. Inside was a small stuffed rabbit, similar to Sophia's beloved Hoppy. A tradition of sorts. Nathan took the bag, an unreadable expression crossing his face. "Thank you." The awkwardness was palpable, 3 adults connected by blood and circumstance, but separated by choices and consequences. I moved toward Olivia, looking at the sleeping infant on her chest. "She's beautiful," I said honestly. "Would you like to hold her?" Olivia offered. I hesitated, then nodded. As she carefully transferred Aurora into my arms, I felt an unexpected surge of emotion. This tiny person, innocent of the complicated circumstances of her arrival, was part of me, my blood, my family. Her small face bore the unmistakable Mitchell features, the same ones I saw in Thomas and Sophia, in Nathan, in myself. "Hello, Aurora," I whispered. "I'm your Aunt Emma." Nathan watched us, something softening in his expression. "The kids talk about you all the time," he said. "Thomas is obsessed with that volcano you helped him build. Won first prize at the science fair." "I know," I said. "I was there." He looked away, the implication clear. While I'd been present for these milestones, he'd been building a new life, missing pieces of his children's stories. "They miss you," I added, not unkindly. "They need more than every other weekend, Nathan." "I know," he admitted. "I'm trying to figure out how to balance everything. Work, Aurora, Thomas, and Sophia." He ran a hand through his hair. "It's harder than I expected." "Parenting usually is," I said, "especially when you've complicated it unnecessarily." He flinched but didn't argue. Progress, perhaps. Aurora stirred in my arms, her tiny face scrunching before relaxing again into sleep. She has your eyes," I told Nathan. "And Mom's chin." "Dad says she has the Mitchell determination," Nathan offered, "whatever that means." "It means she'll be stubborn and difficult," I said with a small smile. "Like all of us." A fragile moment of connection, built on the foundation of this new life we both loved despite everything. Not forgiveness, not reconciliation, but perhaps the first tentative step toward something new, a relationship defined not by the past, but by the future, by the children who would carry the Mitchell name forward, hopefully with fewer of its burdens. After saying goodbye to Aurora and her parents, I walked through Riverfront Park, the autumn leaves crunching beneath my feet. The water reflected the late afternoon sun, turning the Willamette River into a ribbon of gold. I found a bench overlooking the water and sat, needing a moment to process the complex emotions of the day. My phone buzzed with a text from Megan. "Dinner at 6? Mom's bringing her famous lasagna. The kids are making dessert, so bring your appetite and your courage." I smiled, texting back a quick affirmation. Then another message arrived, this one from my mother. "Proud of you for visiting today. Baby steps. See you at dinner. Love you." She'd known about my visit to meet Aurora. Of course she had. Claire Mitchell was slowly becoming the family connector, the bridge between fractured pieces. It was a role that suited her better than the compliant wife she'd been for decades. As the sun began to set over Portland, casting long shadows across the park, I thought about the journey of the past year. Nathan's betrayal had shattered what I'd thought was the foundation of my life. My family, my business, my understanding of loyalty and love. Yet from those broken pieces, something new had emerged. Deeper relationships, unexpected alliances, a stronger sense of self. I'd always defined family through blood and obligation. Now I understood it differently, as a choice made daily, a commitment to show up for the people who matter, to stand by values bigger than convenience or comfort. My family now included Megan, who had no biological connection to me, but had become as close as any sister. It included Thomas and Sophia, who looked to me not just as their aunt, but as their constant, their safe harbor in a sea of adult complications. It included my mother, evolving from the passive figure of my childhood into someone with her own voice and choices. And yes, it included Nathan, Olivia, and Aurora too. At a distance for now, but connected nonetheless. The future would determine what that connection might become. Not the idealized family of my father's carefully constructed image, but something real, with all its flaws and fractures and possibilities for growth. The sun dipped below the horizon as I rose from the bench, heading toward Megan's home, toward dinner and laughter and the people who had chosen to be family to each other. Even when it wasn't easy, especially when it wasn't easy. He had chosen his pregnant mistress. My family had chosen to cut all ties. But in that cutting, We had found freedom to build something truer than what we'd lost. A family defined not by obligation or appearance, but by love, choice, and the courage to stand by both when they mattered most. As I walked through the autumn evening, I felt a sense of peace that had been elusive for so long. The Mitchell family would never be what it once was, but perhaps it could be something better, something real. And in that reality, messy and imperfect as it might be, I had finally found my place. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.